Taiwan independent?
My opinion on Taiwan is that Taiwan is the Chinese concept of Taiwan.
Wait,
really?
Is that a Bible?
No, that's a Little Red Book.
The Little Red Book?
The Little Red Book. It's the Red Bible.
Okay. Some may say more important than the Bible. Some may.
Especially over here.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
Allow me to introduce you all to a man by the name of Boris Yell-stin, who is most famous not only for being the first president of the Russian Federation, but also one of the greatest dancers of all time. Yell-stin was a member of the Communist Party from 1961 to 1990, but only came into prominence while the Soviet Union was making reforms under the then leader Gorbachev during the 1980s. Gorbachev is primarily known for his reforms, such as replacing the strict state-controlled economy with some limited market entry, as well as social policies which reduced state censorship and political repression. Gone were the days of Stalin in which people were sent to the gulags to engage in forced labor while wearing shock collars.
America, Kaya, please just fucking go, just stop.
Is this joke overused? Absolutely. Am I still going to keep using it? Absolutely.
America, Kaya, please just fucking go, just stop.
Gorbachev referred to these policies as socialism with a human face. And that face does not look like this.
Oh, shit. La, 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 wait till I get my money right.
Gorbachev sought not to dismantle communism, but to reform it, both economically and socially. These social reforms included freer access to information. People outside of the Eastern Bloc could marvel at the packages of diarrhea-inducing slop. These empty shells had no caviar, truffles, or Kobe beef to fuel Hasan's working-class muscles so he could fight against the evil billionaires through the power of Dolce & Gabbana accessories. Meanwhile, the reforms also allowed people in Eastern Europe to gain greater access to information about Western Europe and the United States. The lessening of social repression allowed for more outspoken oppositional forces. The leader of the opposition was, you guessed it, Boris Yell-stin, who called for more immediate and drastic reforms. As a result of this, Yell-stin was invited to visit the United States. During his time, he got to visit New York City, meet President George H.W. Bush, and even visit the Johnson Space Center in Houston. But the highlight of his trip was not sightseeing America's greatest city, nor meeting the president, nor visiting a space station. And to my knowledge, he did not try any of the space station's fake astronaut ice cream either. It involved looking at ordinary, Earthling ice cream, and popsicles in a Texan grocery store called Randall's. Yell-stin was awestruck by the ice cream. Imagine being riveted by Bill Cosby's non-quaalude laced pudding pops.
You're invited to a wedding in the Jell-O freezer. Let's go. Do you smooth and creamy Jell-O pudding pop take this chocolatey chocolate chip as your partner?
I do.
Chocolate chip, the newest flavor in the family of creamy Jell-O pudding pops.
I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Chocolate Chip Jell-O pudding pops. Aren't they delicious? And now for the reception.
Good things pop up in the Jell-O freezer.
Yell-sin stated, "When I saw those shelves crammed with hundreds of thousands of cans, cartons, and goods of every possible sort, for the first time, I felt quite frankly sick with despair for the Soviet people. That such a potentially super rich country as ours has been brought to a state of such poverty. It is terrible to think of it." Well, don't feel bad, Boris. This Soviet slop is at least better than capitalist Taco Bell. Less than 2 months later, the Berlin Wall fell, and Yell-stin, the foremost supporter for intensifying reforms, would be elected president of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. That's quite a mouthful. In 1991, the Soviet Union would then collapse. The reforms which were made led not to a stronger system, but rather to the collapse of the entire system, as the USSR broke apart into various new states, namely Russia, along with Ukraine, Georgia, and most importantly, Kazakhstan. That's right, these packages of frozen treats sort of kind of caused the end of the Soviet Union, or in Hasan's terms,
the fall of the USSR was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century.
Well, Hasan Piker, vanilla ice cream has scored 1 point, and you have scored 0 points. Our bro Boris would become the first president of the Russian Federation, and dance his way into becoming the greatest Russian leader of all time. No, I'm just messing with you. Boris Yeltsin's quick transition from communism to capitalism led to a decade of stagnation, destitution, and oligarchy through what some call economic shock therapy. Don't be too hard on our bro Boris though. As an alcoholic, he was way too shit-faced to notice that the life expectancy of the average Russian male dropped from 62.8 to 57.4 by the mid-1990s. But have no fear. In spite of all the pain and suffering, Russian citizens now had access to Pizza Hut. One advertisement even starred our other bro Gorbachev.
Горбачев, из-за него мы на краю экономической пропасти.
Да благодаря ему у нас свобода.
Из-за него мы на краю политического хаоса.
Благодаря ему мы теперь свободны. И можем дойти до края этой пиццы.
The Edge Pizza from Pizza Hut with no outer crust, so the toppings go all the way to the edge.
За Горбачева!
За Горбачева! За Горбачева!
Almost everyone's been to the edge. Have you?
Even our voice of the poor, Hasan Piker, loves Pizza Hut, so long as he dances with a slice of pizza in drag. Yeah, instead of getting diarrhea from Soviet food, they got to enjoy the constipation from all of that extra crust. In my previous video, I covered how vanilla switched from being a luxury item to being ordinary, Pizza Hut is actually another example of how a product can switch from being a relatively premium status symbol into, well, whatever the hell this is. Even in Western countries during the 80s and 90s, Pizza Hut was seen as high quality, a dining experience with a salad bar and servers.
Do you really think this is the right thing for us to be doing, Ivana?
What will people think?
Let them talk.
Donald.
Ivana. It's wrong, isn't it?
But it feels so right.
Then it's a deal?
Yes, we eat our pizza the wrong way.
Crust first.
Introducing stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut. With a ring of cheese baked into a totally new, thinner crust, you'll want to eat it the wrong way. Crust first.
May I have the last slice?
Actually, you're only entitled to half.
Large, just $9.99.
Today, Pizza Hut is a takeout place designed to put you into a grease coma right before it clogs your asshole. Putting clogged assholes aside, Eastern Europe would become one of the most anti-communist regions of the world, as most former communist states like Poland made gradual reforms and transitioned into capitalism and democracy in a boring, yet functional manner, while Russia's quick transition to capitalism proved to be a disaster. This story is a testament to the balancing act societies must play when it comes to markets versus equality. The two are not mutually exclusive, but rather forces which must be balanced in order to build a constructive economy and society. If you focus too much on equality, you ignore the forces of supply and demand, which in turn leads to impoverishment, and food only fit for Asmongold's pet rats and cockroaches.
There's been like a dead rat in my house for like the past like 3 days, and I can't find where he is.
But on the other hand, if you focus too much on markets while ignoring equality, you end up with a massive underclass, while a trillionaire spends most of his time shitposting memes by 14-year-olds on X.com. With the exception of neckbeard ideologues like tankies and ANCAPs, those of us who have ever ventured out of our dad's attic know that the world is a hyper-complex, morally ambiguous place of trade-offs and compromises between various stakeholders. The greatest antidote to extremist economic beliefs is getting a real job. And those of us who do not are the same sort of teenager or university student who make up the bulk of Hasan Piker's fan base. You know who did understand the benefits of pragmatism over ideology? Of combining markets and some semblance of equality, at least to some minuscule degree? China's Deng Xiaoping. Sorry for the atrocious mispronunciation. After Hasan's favorite ender of human lives, Mao, died, Deng would maneuver himself into becoming the most powerful man in China. While still being a member of the Chinese Communist Party, Deng was not a real communist, nor was he a hardcore libertarian espousing the values of guns, raw milk, and lowering the age of consent. Deng was a pragmatist, famously saying, quote, "It does not matter if a cat is black or white, so long as it catches mice." Through his policies, China switched from a Maoist state socialist policy to state communism. Rather than having government centralize control over every aspect of the economy, a policy which led to mass famine and destitution, the economy would introduce market reforms and open up to foreign investment, while having these companies still be subservient to the state. At first, this openness to free trade led to mass manufacturing growth, most famously for cheaply produced toys. Every kid who grew up during the 90s and the 2000s is familiar with the Made in China label, which at best was a testament to the country's vast economic might, and at worst was a symbol of poor quality and stupid consumer sold to fat Westerners at Walmart. Look at all the stupid capitalist crap on Hasan Piker's bookshelf. A lot of that stuff was made in China. Speaking of bookshelves which don't have any books on them, China is also the world's biggest printer of books, many of which are printing the intellectual property of American and British publishers. Granted, this doesn't really matter to our revolutionary intellectual Hasan Piker.
Did you read a lot of books when you were growing up?
I read a decent amount. I don't really read as much anymore, but I did when I was growing up.
Any books stick out in your head as memorable ones?
Oh no.
I don't know. I have no like immediate books that come to mind. I'm also terrible at recall in general. If you ask me about any songs, for example, I can never tell you any of the lyrics. Or if you ask me about like what my favorite movie is, I have a very hard time pulling from my brain.
New Lamborghini here.
Maybe it's because it's
Fun to
packed
drive
with
up here in the Hollywood Hills.
ridiculous
But you know what I like a lot more than
pieces of
materialistic
information.
things?
Knowledge! Hasan, couldn't you have named the book What Is to Be Done by Vladimir Lenin? You did upload a photo of yourself apparently reading the book alongside your fabulous Cartier ring. Was it too difficult for you to read? If so, I recommend the book Communism for Kids. It's for children aged 10 to 14. But if that's beyond your reading comprehension skills, then let me recommend A is for Activist. It comes with some really cool pictures designed to appeal to someone of your intellectual rigor. One item which China has produced in mass as of late, which Hasan Piker has a liking to, is the infamous Labubu.
The concept of knowing there's currently a Labubu on Karl Marx's grave. I think Karl Marx would have appreciated a Labubu. I think he would have really liked it. I think he would have enjoyed what a Labubu implies. I think he would have appreciated it in general. So I don't know if, I don't know why people are hating on that, you know? Workers made the Labubu. Labubu.
During the 90s and 2000s, Chinese toys were cheap, abundant, and fungible. These plastic dinosaurs are not too different than these other plastic dinosaurs. Hasan, buddy, I recommend that you buy some of these toy plastic dinosaurs. Just the ones that are a little bit larger than usual, as I don't want them to be a choking hazard for you. Unlike plastic toy dinosaurs, Labubus use artificial scarcity, which essentially means restricting supply to induce demand. Unlike diamonds, golden toilets, and even vanilla beans, Labubus are not underproduced due to non-human factors, namely natural scarcity. They are purposefully undersupplied in order to make sure that those which are sold are more valuable. On top of this, the boxes conceal what type of Labubu you get. You might get a super rare, cool Labubu that you can use as a status symbol to show off to other people and possibly even get laid with girls that are low IQ, or you could just get a common, boring Labubu, which in most cases is, well, the case. As I pointed out in my last video, scarcity produces exclusivity, and exclusivity displays status. Status is inherently unequal, and thereby opposed to the ethos of communism and socialism. After all, in sharp contrast to most Chinese toys, Labubus are not cheap.
20 Labubus in 1 month! Go off! You're choosing this over your child! What do you think of 20 Labubus in a month?
How much you spent total in Labubus?
Whoa, how much do you think she spent?
Hopefully not more than 300.
Try doubling that plus. $700. $700 to Labubu, and they're hard to get. Shut the f up.
In many ways, the Labubu is emblematic of China's transition from state socialism to state capitalism. The transition has led millions of people being pushed out of poverty to the point in which the granddaughters of starving rice farmers can burn money off on an ambiguously mammalian creature toy made out of vinyl. It is also a symbol of the vacuous obsession with material status that comes along with a market-based economy, with a thin veneer of communist iconography. Kind of like the Che shirt. Here is a picture Hasan may or may not have taken during his propaganda trip to China. It shows a hammer and sickle, the symbols of communism, on a building with a Gucci store. This looks like some lame parody that some unfunny right-wing wannabe comedian would have made up as satire to make fun of Hasan. Yet here is the real picture of the store. I'm hoping it's AI, but it probably isn't. When asked what his preferred economic system would be like, Hasan didn't at first say China. He said Star Trek.
You'd like communism in America?
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe.
Star Trek is a post-scarcity society due to technology like replicators and fusion power. Last time I checked, we do not have that tech yet. Nor did the Soviet Union. The bread lines are evidence to the existence of a post-scarcity society. What's also evidence against a post-scarcity society in the Soviet Union were the 30,000 people who lined up to take part in the opening of the first McDonald's in the communist world. The least fast food in history. The only items in the Star Trek universe which are luxury items are ones of which the replicators can't produce, such as gold-pressed latinium, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Put a Dolce & Gabbana logo on it, and Hasan will flaunt it in front of his fellow Marxists in arms. When asked to provide a literal, down-to-earth example of an economy he would like the United States to emulate, he stated that China is his preferred model.
They were able to come into modernity and become like a powerhouse, an industrial powerhouse that is competitive with the largest superpower on the planet. I would say if that's the point of good governance, and I think you guys might agree with me on that, I would say China is probably the closest.
Now, it's true that China has been very good at pushing many people in urban centers out of poverty, as well as building infrastructure. But many other countries in Asia have also pushed millions of people out of poverty, and have been very good at building infrastructure. The Gulf states have state-of-the-art infrastructure, and have pushed nearly all of their citizens out of poverty, yet Hasan is not fond of them. So it can't just be urban wealth, high-speed trains, and Labubu vending machines. Keep in mind that China is far from an egalitarian state. The massive increase in wealth under state capitalism has led to vast inequality. An article in New Lines magazine points out that while the Chinese state capitalist model brings in some impressive results, it also comes at the cost of crushing labor unions, who have little to no power compared to the state-owned enterprises. This is the complete opposite of the workplace democracy Hasan also pretends to support. He also overlooks the massive urban versus rural poverty divide in China, the ever-growing concentration of wealth in the hands of government-linked business officials, and the horrendous work-life balance. Your average Chinese worker grinding insane hours is not making millions of dollars a year watching 90 Day Fiancé and Hell's Kitchen on Twitch. One Taiwanese writer wrote, quote, "Actual Chinese people are merely shadow puppets through which to construct a grandiose fantasy that is juxtaposed with Western contexts."
I'm not asking you to be more Chinese.
I already am. I already am, chat, and you are too. This is like, chat, remember when I made you guys all say the Shahada and you all became Muslim? Okay, this is kind of like that. We're all at Tiananmen Square, so we are all becoming Chinese. From all around the country, literally travel here just to see this.
That part is insane. Look how many.
Like, I just don't, like, I'm not, I don't have any sort of patriotism in my heart. For any, yeah, for America, but just in general. I'm not like a very...
In other words, the real reason why Hasan simps for China is not because of its economy, but rather because it's the only adversary of the Western world which is not run by idiotic buffoons who believe in evil genies, turn their currency to asswipes, marry 7-year-olds, or unironically claim to have no anus. The Chinese Communist Party also rejects the European-style social safety net, which is typically called social democracy, or what many Americans view as the Nordic model in countries like Sweden and Denmark. The Chinese Communist Party rejects the European social safety net. Xi Jinping has warned against what is called welfarism, which in his eyes promotes stagnation, laziness, and dependency. Now, I am a social democrat myself, and I acknowledge the superior benefits that European countries provide their citizens. But at the same time, I must reluctantly admit that Xi Jinping isn't completely wrong about the European model either. While the US was creating ChatGPT and China was producing DeepSeek, EU bureaucrats were arguing over fucking Ethernet cables. When talking to mainstream media outlets, Hasan pretends to be a normie SOCDEM supporting universal healthcare. But when he's talking to his radicalized audience, he simps for North Korea.
Come on, dude. The PRK executed 12 young men for playing League of Legends.
When he is caught off guard, he will switch from one into the other, depending on what allows him to LARP as a revolutionary, while he still gets to keep his collection of Labubu, sports cars, Rolex watches, and anime swords.
You live in LA, right? So it goes into, Beverly Hills or something, and it says, today, the city council has voted to expropriate your lavish, undeserved wealth and return your homes to the people. And that's backed up by police power, so it's violent, but it's not shooting people against the wall. But like, is that what you mean? That
this is so
people
far
in Beverly
out
Hills.
in the future.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, this is so far out in the future for even someone like myself that like I don't even see the necessity of arguing on how this would work.
Scandinavian countries and other European states are not socialist, let alone communist. IKEA is a Swedish corporation. This toy shark, which I mentioned in my last video, is not manufactured by the Swedish government, and neither is this bookshelf or the meatballs sold at the store. Lego is a Danish company. It is not owned by the Danish government. It's a private corporation. There will never be a communist uprising by these Lego guys. Sweden also has more billionaires in proportion to its population than the United States does. They don't even have an inheritance tax. And I say this as someone who is pro-inheritance tax since I don't want Hasan to have access to his mega rich daddy's money. The American model, granted, is not without its perks either. While the US has a weaker social safety net than most other developed nations, it is also extremely innovative and creative. Its high wages and low regulations attract the best and brightest from across the world. It also has far better household income than nearly any other country outside of a handful of microstates, which in turn gives one freedom to spend as they please. The state of Alabama has a higher household income than the country where I live in, Canada. Yeah, by this metric, we got totally outclassed by inbred rednecks. The Chinese, European, and American economic models each have their ups and downs. We live in a world of trade-offs. Trade-offs between markets and equality, freedom and fairness, innovation and precaution. Yet none of this nuance matters to Hasan and his fanbase of 14-year-olds whose only understanding of the economy is making microtransactions in freemium gaming and giving their daddies hard-earned cash to Hasan Piker on Twitch. This leads us to the question of why Hasan's incoherent economic beliefs have gained traction among young people in the first place. One reason is the affordability crisis, and most of all the housing crisis, which has gripped nearly every advanced economy on the planet, in cities of any significance. Here is a castle which costs roughly the same amount as a shit shack in Toronto. Granted, the castle lacks any beautiful vistas of homeless encampments. Another is the increased interest in government intervention in the economy, which was spurred by the Great Recession. Watch my video on when trolls ruled the internet to learn more. On top of that, millennials and Zoomers have no lived recollection of the Cold War. None of them have ever had to watch the news of Soviet breadlines, let alone line up in a Soviet breadline. The closest thing they've ever gotten to any of this is lining up for unicorn matcha lattes. Hasan came into prominence during the rise of BreadTube, which was named after the anarcho-communist book called The Conquest of Bread, in reference to the lack of food for peasants under the then Russian Empire. The problem today for most poor people, at least in relatively developed nations, is not a lack of access to bread. It's that they have way too much fucking bread. Like, way too much bread. Like, look at this Pizza Hut crust. Forget Ozempic. Maybe he can switch to communism to solve the obesity epidemic. Because younger people have no recollection of the Cold War, the word socialism just doesn't cause them to shit their pants like it does for boomers. The over-misuse of the word socialism by right-wing boomers for any social program, government regulation, or moderate politician has made the accusation almost meaningless. My personal favorite example of this phenomenon is the book by Richard Ferguson called Satan, Socialism, and the Democratic Party. I personally love the cover art. Here is Lucifer himself, controlling Karl Marx, Mao, Hitler, and Joe Biden. The book is written for people in their 80s who, through the power of dementia, have the cognitive ability of the target audience of A is for activist. The US in particular also has a pretty scrappy social safety net when compared to other developed countries. This is why Hasan oftentimes presents himself as a normie European-style social democrat when he is trying to cloak his more extreme beliefs.
This is a classic example of what happens when your father doesn't pay attention to you. You turn out to be a slut who's craving for attention, and then I tend to pick you up at a bar late night and bang you out on the first date.
Another factor is that a larger portion of Zoomers are in university than Gen Xers and Boomers. And you might be thinking, wow, that must mean that they're really smart. Well, putting TikTok and the overuse of AI rotting their brains aside, university education can oftentimes lead to its own form of stupidity, as academics oftentimes fixate on theory rather than practice. Many of these ideas, such as centralizing control over the economy and sharing resources equally, sound elegant and enlightened, but they don't necessarily work in a hyper-complicated world. These theories are usually loaded with academic jargon and fancy words, which make them sound impressive, even though they're very facile. They are designed to appeal to people with high reading comprehension and low critical thinking skills. Granted, not as difficult to read as, say, Satan, Socialism, and the Democratic Party. Even the queen of BreadTube herself acknowledged this phenomenon. Many people like Hasan use terms like capitalism, neoliberalism, colonialism, and imperialism the same way that right-wing boomers use words like socialism and communism. Catch-all terms to lump in all the evils of the world into one capsule, designed to be easily digestible mental laxatives for people who are cognitively constipated. Communism works in tightly knit communities, such as hunter-gatherer bands, in which everybody knows each other. A family also operates kind of like a micro-communist society. Everyone takes care of the baby, and no one expects the baby to get a side hustle to pay the bills. However, once you deal with large-scale societies, which have hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if not hundreds of millions, if not billions of people, well, let's just say you can't have meaningful reciprocal relationships with everybody. How many of you have a profound relationship with the garbage men who throw out your trash?
Hello everyone. Heard a lot of people saying that I exaggerate things, I make things more than what they are. And that's true. But not in terms of my room. A lot of people think that it's actually not as bad as it is. And I'm probably gonna clean it today, but I don't want to lose the memory. And so got 3 drinks here. This is McDonald's, Long John Silver's. Fuck is that? Whataburger, Taco Bell, shoes. That thing I found in the street.
Reciprocal relationships are like when a husband and a wife go down on each other, whereas transactional relationships is when you pay a hooker to go down on you. Reciprocal relationships work well when you have a close connection to the person, but in order to deal with people who you don't know well, transactional relationships are required. I doubt Hasan has a deep friendship with Congolese miners who mine the gold for his rings. Speaking of miners and labor, Hasan has spoken of the labor theory of value.
Into the labor theory of value, right?
Goddamn.
The labor theory of value, which is different than marginal utility, which is what we use currently when we ascribe, when we say this is this much, like something is this valuable, right? Ice cream is $4. But if it's really hot out, maybe ice cream is $5 because, well, there's a little bit of scarcity on the supply, but the demand has gone up. So now ice cream is more expensive. Whereas from a Marxian perspective, the value of that ice cream is stable. It's just what kind of labor went into the production of it, what were the resources used to make that ice cream, what kind of capital was put into the ice cream factory.
What Hasan doesn't realize is that the very existence of himself is a refutation of the labor theory of value. Labor theory of value posits that the value of a good or service is determined by the total amount of socially necessary labor required to produce it. Hasan produces no socially necessary labor whatsoever, yet he makes insane amounts of money watching other people's content, essentially making money off of watching other people's labor. He is essentially an economic parasite. Labubus don't provide any functional value, yet there are people who covet them. The workers who assemble the Labubus are not working harder than the workers who assemble less coveted toys, yet Labubus produce far more wealth than your typical toy. This is why most economists today promote what is called the subjective theory of value. This is an economic concept stating that the value of a good or service is not determined by the labor required to produce it, or any inherent property, but by the individual consumer's personal preferences, desires, and perceived utility of the item. For example, if this girl sets up an OnlyFans account, there will be demand for her services from simps. However, if Hasan's orbiter, Mike from PA, sets up an OnlyFans account and puts countless of hours into producing nudes, this will not produce any revenue, as there is no demand for looking at his ass cheeks. Multi-millionaire Hasan Piker has used the labor theory of value to bash billionaires like Elon Musk. Well, at least he has done so recently, unlike his past.
Shout out to Elon Musk, the ultimate swag champion of all time, for unveiling his latest invention, the Hyperloop, earlier this afternoon. According to Musk, the Hyperloop will also be faster than a bullet train and at a fraction of the cost. Now, the serious question I have for Elon Musk is this. How do you have the time to come up with this shit when women are probably tossing their salads your way faster than you can say Hyperloop in every single corner? You're a designated genius, you're a good-looking dude, and you happen to be a fucking billionaire.
By the way, what did Hasan mean when he said women were quote-unquote tossing salads? What does tossing salads even mean in the first place? Let's check Urban Dictionary. Giving anal sex with your tongue, rimming the outer area of the anus, poking and prodding in the anus area with the ones. What? So according to Hasan, women are lunging at Elon Musk's ass crack? Okay, Hasan, I believe you. However, as of late, Hasan has had a change of heart when it comes to Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is a fucking failure. And yet, in spite of his failures, because he lucked into a, initial... Because he happened to be at the right place at the right time, he has failed upwards with his endless wealth.
Now, you can hate Elon all you want, but virtually everything Hasan accuses Musk of doing also refers to himself. Hasan's empty chair provides a more valuable streaming experience than Hasan streaming himself. Hasan Piker has also bashed Jeff Bezos.
Jeff Bezos is nothing without all the labor that allowed him to become a billionaire, okay? There is no value without labor. Jeff Bezos was unbelievably and immensely lucky.
Now, there are plenty of legitimate criticisms of Bezos and Amazon, but at the same time, no one can deny that Jeff Bezos, the owner of Hasan's platform Twitch, mind you, has revolutionized retail and logistics. the access to an unbelievably vast variety of products, which can be delivered under a short period of time for reasonable prices, is a testament to the value Amazon is capable of. Far more value than Hasan sitting on his ass reading other people's tweets. The economic system Hasan advocates for, yet never lives by, could never produce yak cheese Himalayan dog chew bars, strawberry flavored. These are the sort of treats Hasan gives Kaya right after he shocks her. One can have a legitimate conversation as to whether or not we should have billionaires. We can tax them out of their billionaire status, but at the same time we must realize that most of their wealth is in the form of assets, not cash or gold. People like Hasan seem to think that Jeff Bezos is like Mr. Krabs in the Bikini Bottom vault, swimming in dollar bills. These issues are more complicated than vapid slogans. Much of this is based around what is called the fixed pie fallacy, also known as the zero-sum fallacy, which is the mistaken belief that wealth, jobs, and resources are finite. It assumes that for one person or a group of people to gain, one must automatically lose. It's a zero-sum game. In reality, innovation and productivity allow wealth to be created, and, in some cases, effectively expanded into a larger and ever-growing pie. Granted, Hasan Piker is not fond of sharing his own giant piece of the supposedly fixed pie, as I pointed out in his New York Times interview.
The city council has voted to expropriate your lavish, undeserved wealth and return your homes to the people.
You don't understand. Hasan needs to keep his piece of the pie. How is he going to duel Elon Musk without his anime sword? How will he ride into battle against the billionaires without his horse or his sports cars? And he can't really rally the troops without his Marxist Labubus. In spite of Hasan's ramblings about how we are all being screwed over by the system,
world, and this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They're improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer lives, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here. They still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there, but now Bangladesh, it's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.
Millions of people across the world have escaped extreme poverty. Capitalism has produced immense inequality, but it has also risen the tides, which has lifted all boats. The small boat, as well as the yacht Hasan will one day purchase to engage in naval warfare against the corporations. Hasan can talk about late-stage capitalism all he wants, but his wardrobe says otherwise. If capitalism does die, we will know about it, since under real communism, Hasan would be working in a uranium mine, in a gulag, while wearing Kaya's shock collar. Market forces of supply and demand are deeply imperfect, but we ignore them at our own peril. Yell-stin understood this when he looked at the variety of fucking ice cream. But Yell-stin's failure as president also shows us the mess that can result when market forces are left unchecked. Markets can promote creativity, innovation, and prosperity, but sometimes these market forces create perverse incentives, which encourage talentless wastes of space like Hasan Piker to become extra wealthy. During my first video on the subject, I ended the video by stating that Hasan does espouse the flaws in capitalism, not through his BS arguments, but through his existence, as only under capitalism can someone as talentless and useless as him become so wealthy. But to be an equal opportunist, I must also admit that some of these perverse incentives apply to myself. The YouTube algorithm is kind of like A market of supply and demand for eyeballs, clicks, and in turn ad revenue, which results in money. When I created a highbrow video series on the various scenarios in which our civilization might collapse, the algorithm didn't spread the video because there wasn't much demand for the subject, despite what I thought were high-quality videos about one of, if not the most important subjects we could ever ponder. On the other hand, my videos mocking Hasan and other lolcows have gained traction with the algorithm, as there is plenty of demand for them in our online hate economy. There is more demand for drama content than there is for highbrow pressing issues, and so here I am with the supply. I have been rewarded by the same perverse market forces, but markets at the end of the day are just a ton of people making decisions. This ordeal says less about the flaws of capitalism, or the flaws of socialism for that matter, and more about the flaws of ourselves, including myself. And to those of you who accuse me of being a grifter for using drama content for algorithmic traction, well, the last thing I have to say to you is this.
I buy a lot of expensive things because I have a lot of money. You can't afford expensive things because you don't have a lot of money. Haha, you want these things but you cannot afford them. That means that you're not cool because you're just a poor person. Stupid poor people, stupid poor people. I have more money than you. Stupid poor people, stupid poor people. You can't even afford food.